Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name's James Schofield, and you're listening to My Growth Coaching, a podcast which explores the field of business coaching. In each episode of this series, I'm talking to expert coaches from inside and outside of the international technology company Siemens about the business coaching issues they encounter with their coaching clients and how they work together to find practical solutions, helping each client become the best version of themselves. My guests will share interesting case studies about the challenges people face in their business life and how they deal with them. It could be dealing with conflicts in a team, overcoming procrastination, taking difficult decisions, balancing family and career, all issues that we are familiar with but which maybe we don't know how to solve on our own. So join us and make sure you listen to the very end, because that's where I'll give a short summary of the recommendations from each episode that might help you manage your life just a little bit better. Today's episode is called Coaching as a Leader. And I want to look at the topic of why today's leaders need to have coaching skills if they want to be successful. Now, if you read any material today coming out of people and organizations or HR departments on the topic of management, it'll tell you that this is something the modern leader needs if they want their employees to develop. But in practical terms, what does that actually mean? To answer that question, I've invited Michael Ziuk onto the My Growth Coaching podcast because he is not only a very successful leader, he's also an experienced and professionally qualified coach. So let me introduce him to you. Michael has been working for Siemens for over 30 years now in various management positions in sales, service and project management, and he worked for many years abroad, which in this case is outside of Germany. Currently, he leads a team at Siemens Cybersecurity responsible for managing vulnerabilities, that means weaknesses in the IT landscape. In addition to that, he is part of a pool of certified coaches and moderators who are able to support team and people development activities within Siemens. Outside of work, and if time and snow conditions permit, Michael likes doing nighttime ski tours, which means going up mountains in the moonlight, having a nice solid Bavarian dinner at the top at one of the conveniently placed huts that Bavarians like to put on top of their mountains, and finally, when he's full of dumplings, a nice downhill ski run. And you really don't want to be standing in somebody's way when they're full of Bavarian dumplings. But another thing that is very interesting about Michael is that he also uses some of his free time to work for a food bank in Munich. He drives a small lorry around which collects and distributes food for people in need in his neighborhood. So let's say hello to Michael. So tell me, Michael, what led you to coaching? Can you tell us something about your coaching background?
Sure. Actually, I was introduced to coaching during one of my leadership seminars at Siemens in Feldafing. Mm-hmm. As you probably know, most of the trainers there are coaches themselves. We also use some coaching tools, were introduced with some coaching techniques. And I had a lot of conversation with my trainers there, and they really encouraged me to go for coaching training. And so almost 10 years ago, I decided to start a coaching training at ISB here in Germany. It's a well-known institute for training coaches. So that's how I got to introduce to coaching, and then even started my own coaching training.
Right. Did you find when you did your coaching training that you discovered a lot about yourself that you didn't realize?
which I didn't realize. Maybe not so much which I didn't realize, but for sure I discovered a lot about myself that which came, I would say, apparent then, or more clear to me during that education, because lots of that coaching education is really learn about yourself and be much, much more self-aware.
Right. Yeah. What I find, I sometimes think these coaching trainings should come with a health warning, because I've met so many people who've done the coaching training, and after it, they've decided, right, I have to change my entire life, and they change their jobs. They sometimes, sadly, they then change their families. Even seems to turn a lot of people quite upside down, but not in your case, because I know a little bit about what you do. So tell us about what you do now.
What I'm doing now is I'm leading a team of cybersecurity experts at Siemens Cybersecurity. So we are taking care of all those IT assets and the vulnerabilities that come with those IT assets.
Now, I know that when we first met, you were doing a lot of, one-to-one coachings and team coachings, and that took up. You were somebody that I like to recommend to people as a coach to go to. But I could imagine in your role now,
yes,
you don't really have much time for actual one-to-one coaching in the traditional sense. Is that so?
In the traditional sense, that is correct. But still, I try to take some time, so I'm still part of the Grow to Glow network. And whenever time permits, I take on coaches. Haven't done that many in the past months, but whenever time permits, I like to do that. To also practice the coaching techniques myself. So yes, not that many, but if time permits, I really still like doing it. Sure.
Okay. Sure. And anybody listening out there, I can really recommend Michael as an excellent coach.
Thank you.
Now, Michael, there's a lot of talk in P&O or HR literature about the leader, the modern leader as a coach, as someone who brings a coaching mentality to their team management. What do you think about that?
Maybe let me get back to the point you made in the beginning. Coaching training should come with a health warning and so on and so forth. So in fact, also in my group, in my training group, there were people that changed their lives, that changed jobs and so on and so forth. I didn't change my life, but I really, really hope I have become a better leader after that that coaching training, because of that being more self-aware. And what I really took from that education, if I really have to boil it down to two key skills or learnings, key learnings, if you will. It's really, the first one is really listening. I think I learned to better listen, and listen in a sense really with the intention to understand. That is definitely one of the things I took from my coaching education. And the second one is really, in many, many situations, as you can imagine, as a leader, you come across many different situations. And in those critical situations, in crisis, or when you have to moderate conflicts, really trying to take the perspective of all the people involved and really put myself into those shoes. And that really, really helps me in those situations, and hopefully also has helped me to become a better leader.
And so, do you feel this this feeds into your activities as a leader? For
sure, definitely. As I said, I mean, I'm leading a team of experts. In many cases, really, I really do not understand very much in detail the technology behind, or the problems, the challenges behind. So yet I have to make decisions and I have to guide people. So listening to them and really trying to understand what is the root cause of a topic, what is the root cause of a conflict, really helps me to better act in my role as a leader, for sure. That's what I believe.
I think sometimes also people I think that sounds ideal, and it seems to me that is how coaching can really benefit somebody who is in a leadership position. Sometimes I've heard people talking about they seem to me to confuse the idea of coach as in football coach, as somebody who stands on the side of the football pitch shouting at the players, and they don't see it in the role that you just described as somebody who is there to listen and to try to understand exactly what it is that the person that you're discussing with is trying to achieve. How this analogy of coach as football coach or coach as the kind of coaching that we're talking as business coach, can you think of a way to clearly explain the difference to people? Because it's something I often run across.
The difference between being a business coach and a coach in the terms of a football coach. Maybe, but I see some similarities probably between being a leader in a business context and the football coach, right? I see a lot of similarities there. Also, as a football coach, you have to listen to your people. You need to understand them, right? You need to understand their strengths and their weaknesses. You need to understand where they need some guidance. And sometimes I wouldn't say that I ever shout, okay? But sometimes I think also as a leader you have to take the lead, as it is implied in the word leadership, right? Leader, you have to take the lead and you have to provide answers. I think so. In that sense, I see some similarities between being a football coach and being a leader in the business context. However, you're right. There is a difference between a football coach and a pure coach in a business context. As a coach in a business context, and I see that in many of those, especially one-on-one sessions I have with coaches as part of Grow to Glow, you are helping people to find the solution, to discover the solution to a problem, to a challenge, whatsoever, because in many instances the solution is within those people, and you are just guiding through the process of helping people to find that solution within themselves.
All right. Do you sometimes, though I could imagine, particularly because you have this leadership role, that people often maybe just look at you and say, just tell me what to do. Do you have that?
And these are the most challenging situations, James, I can tell you. And the biggest challenge in those situations is really to resist that temptation to jump to a conclusion or to propose a solution, and try to find those, I sometimes call them coachable moments, to not jump to the conclusion, but take the time, work with your colleague, with your counterpart, and try to and help that person to find the solution, him or herself.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I mean, still, sometimes, I mean, you've grown up you've been in Siemens a fair number of years. You've seen many different types of managers. How would you compare this coaching approach to leadership with the more traditional command and control approach?
Yeah, maybe some of the topics we have touched upon already. Really, especially in difficult situations, right? Step back, pause, step back, right? Listen, trying to take different perspectives. But I'm also fully aware, and that also happens in my day-to-day business as a leader. There are sometimes situations, especially in a situation of a crisis, where there is no time for a coachable moment or whatsoever. There's really only time to really assess the situation and make fast and swift decisions. Still, obviously, listening to the experts. But I really can also see that there are some situations sometimes where you still have to make fast decisions and where there is really no much time for coaching people, but then rather giving answers and leading and trying to solve a critical situation rather fast. That's how I would describe it.
So there's if you like, there's room for both, and the important thing as a leader is to be flexible and be able to decide which is the best approach in this particular situation. Yeah,
but I think a big difference between a pure, command kind of leadership style is really to always work with your partners, with your experts, with your team members, whatsoever, at eye level, right? And working with them together to jointly really resolve a situation, resolve a crisis, whatsoever.
And have you ever had a situation where you think, I used the wrong approach. I used command and control, and I should really have used this as a coachable moment?
Sure. And I still fall into the trap sometimes to jump to a conclusion too fast, to propose a solution too fast. And sometimes it also still happens to me, right? That I don't act appropriately in a conversation or in a team meeting or whatsoever. I only recently had that. And so what I did is, after the meeting, I realized, I don't think that went very well now. And I went to the phone and called up the colleague and apologized. And that really helped, to be honest. And that really also helped me to put that relationship with this specific colleague to a different level, I would say, even.
It sounds like that was a coachable moment for you as well.
That was my coachable moment, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But still, it can't be easy always. I mean, there's something of a contradiction in a leader also coaching their people. In the classic business coach sense, the business coach is outside of the system in which the person is working. I mean, how is it possible for you to be objective? Can you make that separation for yourself?
In most of the cases, so when I act as a business coach, I'm not part of the system. Okay, so I'm usually my counterparts. I'm coaching. They're in a totally different system because, as you said, exactly, there is a contradiction. It's very, very difficult to be a coach and being part of the system. However, in what I described in certain situations, or the so-called coachable moments, still you can have a conversation between two adults, and you have to decide yourself if you're fully aware of the setup, me being a coach, potential coachee being part of the system. And if both decide, let's give it a try, and it's still possible, then I think those situations are also possible. But in general, you are fully right. Working as a classical business coach, you should not be part of the system. For sure.
Okay. Okay. And do you find? I mean, you take your coaching training, your coaching skills into. I mean, you're still doing coaching, of course, as you mentioned earlier. When you have time, you try to incorporate it into your leadership role. Do you find you also outside of work, maybe in your family, that you adopt a coaching approach? Yeah,
I hope not that I adopt a complete coaching approach, but what I would say is surely also in my partnership. I mean, I'm married more than 30 years now. I would say our conversations have also changed, for sure. For sure.
Right. Yeah. I remember when I was doing my coaching training, and I kept on trying to practice on my family. And at one point, my wife got cross with me and said, "Stop trying to coach me."
I know. happened to me too, right?
Yes. Yes. The trouble is, you get very enthusiastic about an approach or a style, and you think, "Oh, I must try that. I must try that as often as possible." And,
I know. I know what you're talking about. Sure.
Michael, what advice would you give someone taking their first step into a leadership role? Particularly with regards to this topic of coach, leader as coach.
Maybe just some more general advice, I would say. And to a certain extent, I had also done that as part of one of my leadership seminars. Maybe as a very, very first step, really ask yourself a question, why do I want to become a leader? And
that's
maybe
a good question.
A second question, why should people follow me? They sound to be very, very simple questions, right? But if you think about it and if you try to find answers for that, it's not so easy. So that would be maybe one advice. And if you ask me what I probably would have done differently, I would have done that coaching education much, much earlier. I did it when I was in my late 40s. And knowing about the results and how it changes, how you look at things, how you act as a leader, probably I would have done it much, much earlier.
Right. Okay. Yes. Michael, thank you very much for taking part in this interview today.
And thanks for having me, James.
So terrific inputs there from Michael Siuk about the benefits of having a coaching background and how it has helped him to become a better leader. So what are some of the key takeaways from this interview? First off, coaching training teaches you how to listen, but not just so you can get ready to reply, but so that you can really understand the ideas of the other people involved in the discussion. Secondly, a coaching training will also teach you how to take the perspective of the other parties, and this is always key to finding the best solutions. Michael also pointed out that a leader must also be able to sometimes take the lead in situations where fast and quick decisions are required, but a leader coach looks, where possible, for what he calls coachable moments. These are moments where the leader can support the team member to find a solution to a problem themselves without forcing a conclusion on them. For Michael, it was very important that if you make a mistake as a leader, then admit it and apologize to the people affected. And last of all, I asked him what advice he would give somebody starting on a leadership career. And he came up with two, I think, amazing questions. First one, ask yourself, why do I want to be a leader? And secondly, why should people follow me? And last of all, Michael advised people who would like to go into a leadership role to try to do a coaching training early in your career, as it will have a huge influence on how you develop as a leader. Some really valuable insights, I think, from today's session. That's all from this episode of My Growth Coaching. If you like this podcast, please follow and give it a rating on whichever platform you use. And tell your friends about it too, especially if you think some of the ideas I discussed with my guests could be useful for them as well. After all, sharing is caring. I'll be back interviewing more great coaches about their experiences soon, so keep your eyes and ears open. Until then, take care and goodbye.